Okay, morning, Gaz. Tim from RaceBiz. This is our third episode of Racehorse Junkies, 100% real with RaceBiz. So today we've got a few black bookers, and we're just going to have a bit of a talk about. We had a guy on last night, a very good friend of Gary's. He'll explain who he was, and really informative. I advise everyone to have a good listen to it. All right, when we put it up.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, look, we've got Geoff McMurray, who's actually looks at racing, very different to a lot of us. He's a pedigree breeding analyst. So he looks at 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, especially unraced horses, and he looks at it right from the days of when they go into the sale and weanling side. And he keeps a database, which you'll be talking about, of all sires back 12 generations. As well. So it's a very informative chat, and I'm sure that everybody, if you listen to it, you'll learn something, and he gives you some good pointers as well of how to look for 2-year-olds and even about jump outs and trials as well. So that's coming up after Tim and I have had a bit of a chat. You know, one of the things I'm looking forward to is we're coming up to the best week of the year, I think, in racing anywhere. You can have the Everest, whatever else, but let's be honest, Melbourne Cup Spring Carnival Week at Flemington is the equivalent of Royal Ascot in the UK. There's a very special week, and I don't care how much promotions or how much money you throw at something else, you can't beat the tradition, and that's what Melbourne Cup Week has. And I think that it's the highest amount of Group 1s anywhere is, of course, this Saturday, Derby Day. So I'm really pumped for this week coming ahead.
Oh, mate, Derby Day is my most favourite day of the year, but this week coming up, I look forward to this every single year. I can't believe it's come up so fast. Like, it feels like it was only yesterday. But
well, yeah,
a little bit about Geoff last night. You know, the people that he advises, trainers, you know, owners, studs, all that sort of thing. I was intrigued in just the little bits of snippets I got off what he talked about, which was, you know, for me was excellent. You know, and you get him to come on because you're good friends with him.
Yeah, no, look, Geoff and I, we talk racing. We probably talk daily or whatever else about it. He's really into it. But as I said, he looks at things from a different way. And more importantly, while I do ratings and keep all of my data based on all the proven form and all that of horses, if I want to know if a horse can go up that, especially an extra 300 or 400 metres, and it's a 3-year-old of that, Geoff, through his breeding, is very reliable. And the other area he's extremely good at through the breeding, as he talks about later in the show about knowing about the mares and that for 2-year-olds, is if it's wet tracks.
Yep.
Right? Areas that most of us doing our form and keeping our databases are not at that level. And look, it's been his passion. And as he said, he's been doing it all his life. So a bit like us doing ratings, we can do second nature and how to price a field because that's our passion. Well, Geoff's passion is racing again. And it just proves, as we're trying to show through this show, and hopefully over the coming months as well and episodes we have different people on, there's many different ways of doing racing, which can all be profitable. And it just is about educating yourself of different ways to look at a particular field.
Yeah, exactly. You know, putting the time in, especially with what we do, you know, this is our hardest week of the year, but it's our most enjoyable week of the year.
Oh, absolutely. What I will say is, looking out here at the moment, this is a Tuesday morning. The weather is fantastic. It's been interesting. The last 2 weeks, the weather's actually been good, except for the Friday nights and the Saturday for racing. Yep. So both Caulfield Cup Week and also Cox Plate Week, up until Friday morning, the weather had been unbelievable. Then it turns, and then it comes back to Sunday, and there's no rain. So we've been a little bit unlucky and hopefully this spring carnival coming, the weather is nice, and although people won't be there unless you're lucky enough to be an owner of a Melbourne Cup horse, you won't be able to go on track. So that's a little bit sad because it is a carnival I always like to go to 1 or 2 days of. But look, the TV telecast and all that will be pretty good. And, you know, the other thing is most of us in Melbourne today are a little bit happier. We can, as of announced yesterday, but as of Wednesday, up to 10 people can go to a restaurant internally and 50 outdoors. Not that I know of any places that have 50 outdoors, and we do have this thing called rain that comes throughout the year in Melbourne, but at least we've got some freedom, so we're getting back to normal a bit more. And, you know, hopefully we may even be able to go to the track without having to own a horse in the coming months. So, life is coming to normal, and hopefully even more so that we can actually get to travel. And for those of us who may have, adult children who have moved interstate, we may actually be able to see our family again. So, it's something we're looking forward to.
Good. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So we're going to do a couple of black bookers from the weekend. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
I'll start with what I've come up with.
Okay.
All right. I've got a couple from Friday night, one from Friday night and a couple from Caulfield the week before, and I've got a couple from Moonee Valley on the weekend, and then starting with back with the McCafe Sprint at Caulfield, the one that Graff came in, another Danny O'Brien. It's been moved to his stable. Has done nothing for a couple of years. I don't know what this guy does, but he just seems to be able to get his horses to peak on the right days. And I can see why Ollie sticks with him all the way to the back. But he could win with a broomstick at the moment, And off that day there, Caulfield Cup Day, I came up with Graff and Frabagino, the one from Western Australia. He loves the straight at Flemington. He made them look second rate last time he was over here. Caulfield Cup, they're all talking about Anthony Van Dyke. He's got to carry 58 in the Melbourne Cup. I can't see him winning with that weight because Maccabee Diva carried 58 in her last run, and he's not Maccabee Diva at all. Out of that race, also the Geelong Cup, we've got Steel Prince who won that, who's that horse really well. A lot of people are saying, but he did nothing last year in the Melbourne Cup. You got to remember, he was one run short last year because he got scratched at the barriers or just before the race. So he missed out on that, 2,400 metre leg warmer for him. And my black booker in the Caulfield Cup was the chosen one. He ran in the Cup last year, but he did run second in the Sydney Cup. Now, also on the same day, I thought November Dreaming was a great run. Danny, that one there, I think you need to stick with him. And another one from the Friday night, which was also in Saturday but was scratched, was Written Beauty. I thought that was an absolute star on Friday night. That was, if you watch that race, there was nothing going to beat it. The way it won, and it's a big, strong mare. And Groundswell also, since it's been gelded, has just, gone to the next level. And from Saturday, I had Cherry Tortoni, who also likes Flemington. Yes Baby Yes, which was one of my long shots, and La Mexicana in the last. That was a great run. You've got a couple there, Gaz?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, one of the couple I've got from Saturday, actually I liked in Sydney, raced the 2-year-old, the Snowden horse, Mura. It raced 4 and 3 wide, no cover. It was a very good run, and I want to definitely follow that next start. The other one is on, and I backed this one as well. I backed the winner as well in the highway, but Rent a Rock was 4 wide, no cover. It eased a bit in the betting. It got out to a really good price of $10. It was a highway class 3, but I reckon anything from 1,600 to 1,900 metres, I want to be on that next start. Okay. It was a great run. And the other one, which was from the Cox Plate, and I actually was my value pick in the race, but gee, it was a great run. It ran 4th, was Mugatoo. Now, I don't think so much for the Melbourne Cup if it gets in, but what I do think is this horse could win maybe a Lexus or a Sandown Cup, those sort of races. I think, anything up to 2,600 metres is ideal for it. As I said, it was
sting out of the track too, because it doesn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. But, it was good in the when it won the Newcastle and all that, but it's got a bit of class, and it's certainly going well. So for the race horses, they're probably the 3 best ones. But I do check all the barrier trials and in New South Wales. So I've got 3 that I'm going to be following from recent trials. And they are on the 16th of the 10th on Cheo is a Mark Newman. It's a first starter. It's going to probably be in a maiden. It was his second trial. It was excellent trial. It's a trip. I've got it as a triple X. I'm certainly going to be on that. Right. And that's spelled ONCHAO. We will be putting the form up with the names of the horses. Another one I really like from that day for the trials is the Bjorn Baker Soldier of Love. Now, this horse was in a 1,030-metre trial. It was really good. And I'm looking at this horse, anything from 1,300 to 1,500 metres, I want to be on it.
Yep.
And its first couple of starts up. And the other one is a Chris Lee's horse who won 2 out of his only 3 starts, both on a track 4. His only defeat was on a heavy 8. And that's from the 17th for the 10th, Perfect Radiance. Right? So it's the one I want. And I think him between 1,200 to 1,400, the first 2 starts up, is a horse I want to be on.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. As I said, I look at a lot of barrier trials. I do, for horses coming racing and all that. But I do find with some of the unraced ones, especially the maiden trials, you can unearth where you can't really rate the race. But I find it a profitable way of looking at horses at good value.
And I think when we talked to Geoff last night, he just put in a couple of really good little nuggets how to look at unraced horses via the breeding. And
yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that I really took note of, because that's one of the biggest things is trying to work out an unraced horse in a race.
Oh yeah, and there's one thing Geoff said which I totally agree is that I am looking at the trainers I respect as well that have a degree of good first up reliance, which is the Bjorn Baker, Mark Newman, Chris Lees that I've given you today.
Yeah,
I'm looking for the top trainers because they just know how to prepare them correctly.
And if they back their horses, like Philip Stokes and all those ones.
Yeah,
they'll back their horses and same as who's the guy from Caulfield, the Mick Kent's.
Oh yeah, Mick Price.
Yeah, Mick Price.
Yeah.
Those sort of stables, you can't let them go. You got to look at really what they're doing when they put.
That's right. But some of these ones, as I said, I do find off the trials, and they don't always. They may be a bit shorter early, but sometimes they actually ease a bit. But if they've had a good trial of that, they just got a good strike rate.
Yep.
Of getting them ready to go first up, or second up. Sometimes. That's why I look at some of them. I look at within 2 runs because the track condition, or they just may have bad luck on the day. I mean, it's the one thing I always say: no matter how good you are in racing, we can't reliably plot 100% the run, right? All the best intentions, but that's the hardest thing is to get the right run without getting stuck 3 wide or just things don't work out.
All right, we won't run it too long because otherwise.
No, it'll go over to Geoff now. I think don't
forget, guys. Yeah, tonight we've got the Bendigo. We're going to do our Zoom tonight at 7 o'clock Queensland time. All right, so
that's every Tuesday night we have a Zoom.
Yeah,
so please come on and ask us any questions.
Yeah, Tuesday.
That'd be great.
Night.
And we've got a special Melbourne Cup one this week too.
Oh yeah, Melbourne Cup on Sunday. We're going to do that 6 o'clock Queensland time. On Sunday afternoon, we're going to talk about the race and the race that the nation stops for, Melbourne Cup. So we'll do that. We'll do an hour session on Sunday night. We'll put up our ratings and things like that. The one tomorrow night at the end of it, I'll give you my little system I used for the Melbourne Cup for the guys at the end of the show, but you have to come on to be able to pick it up. Guys, and Gary and I will go through the Bendigo Cup as well. Talk about that tonight as well. So I'll give you a few pointers in what we're looking at, and I've got a couple of other horses and a couple of other races as well for tonight.
Sounds good. Enjoy Geoff McMurray, everybody, and see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, definitely enjoy it. So talk to you soon, guys, and this will be posted on Thursday night. All
Thanks.
Right. Bye-bye.
Right.
See you, mate.
See you.
Yep. Evening, everyone. Tim from RaceBiz. Another episode of Race Horse Junkies, 100% real with RaceBiz. Episode 3, and tonight Gary's brought on one of his friends, Geoff McMurray from Pedigree Power. And Gary, I'll leave it over to you, and you can introduce him.
Fantastic. Look, I've known Geoff for a few years now, and he's really a pedigree analyst and looks at racing very different to anyone else I know. Just a bit of a whiz on and going through the breeding, and runs a fantastic database as well. Geoff, would you like to tell us a bit about your racing experience and what you do with your pedigrees and how you hold them on a database?
Yeah, thanks, Gary, and thanks very much, Tim. Yeah, pedigrees, where did it start? Probably about 30 years ago for me. It was more about trying to understand what made a horse a good racehorse. I'm an accountant by background, so I love data. So I got into the pedigree data.
Yep.
So try and understand what actually made a good horse actually perform the way it did. So that sort of drove me. There was no great intent. It was more about trying to understand. That sort of morphed into, I've used it for a number of different things now, sort of tried breeding myself. And I use it a lot now for weanling and yearling sale selections. I do that for a number of trainers, number of bloodstock agents, and a group of a couple of mates where we sort of go out and try and buy horses, whether race them or pinhook them. So that's sort of what I did. And then sort of one day I thought, well, why can't I use a pedigree analysis to actually look at selecting, maiden first starters or 2-year-olds. So that's what I started using. I sort of started looking at it from a betting perspective. So
that's your forte, isn't it? That's
love the 2-year-olds. It's an edge that no one else has really got. So everyone's going off the trials or the jump outs. But while that's a good lead, it doesn't sort of paint a picture sometimes. Supporting it with the pedigree can sort of verify what you're actually seeing in a trial or a jump out. So
okay.
Yeah.
I can testify over the years that with the big 2-year-olds, Magic Millions, etc., Geoff has certainly given me some very good value winners, and especially with the unraced horses, the early 2-year-olds now, which I've got, I do form, but I've got no idea when it comes to unraced 2-year-olds of that. Yep. And barrier trials, Geoff is a whiz with that in picking the right ones.
And I agree with you. I mean, the hardest thing when you don't quite understand the pedigree or the breeding and you're trying to work out a field of horses, and you think, oh, that ran really well in a couple of trials and things like that. But what you would do, Geoff, would just really cement what, a lot of guys don't understand.
Yeah, exactly right. And it can unearth a lot of longer price winners because people actually don't, you haven't got that data in front of you. If you haven't got the software that I use, or you haven't got the experience to look at pedigrees, then you actually can't work that sort of stuff out.
So yours is just the press of a button and it'll tell you if something's got a bit of class about it.
Yeah, there's a number of databases you can use for pedigree analysis. I use one called Pedigree Power.
Yep.
Which basically just gives you a look at a pedigree back to, it goes back 12 generations. What I've done over 30 years is basically work out what I think works. And so I had the maker of Pedigree Power, I had him design me a software application that accesses Pedigree Power, and I can just put in the sire and dam, and it comes up with a number. So it gives me a pedigree score. So it's
you must get a bit excited when you get that pedigree score, and they're offering you 50 to 1.
I love it when they're high. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, yeah. Another thing, Geoff, is real, not only for 2-year-olds, but I can testify over the last couple of years of these derbies, 3-year-olds stepping up for the first time an extra 300 or 400 metres. I might have the form on what they've done up to 2,000, but if they're going to 2,400 of that, Geoff, absolutely, he can nail it on where they're going to run and who can actually stay that extra few hundred metres more than what people actually know.
Have you looked at the derby on the weekend?
I haven't looked at the derby yet, but what Gary just said, you can use the pedigree analysis to look at a preferred distance range for a horse.
Yep.
It's really good for the derbies and the Melbourne Cups and the like, but it's actually really good for the 2-year-olds because, not every horse is fully developed when they're 2. And while they may be racing them at 2 with a high pedigree, if they haven't got a speed profile that says they're an early early running 2-year-old, actually don't want to back him at that point.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can testify to that he's really good at telling you the short price favourite and why it's too early for it. He's very good at that too.
Yeah, the distance profiling that I've done is fairly accurate. So
do you lay horses too, Geoff?
I'm not really a layer. I just prefer to back them.
And he loves the long-priced exotics. Pick first fours and trifectas, etc.
Well,
Yes, especially in the group races.
Oh,
I think the
100% behind you, especially when you know you're getting a good pull and you've got something of value. You know, that's like I had. I got the trifecta on the Moonee Valley Cup on the weekend. You know, and when you have Miami Bound it, and I only had 3 horses to win, and you know the rest, not the field by field, but you know I think I had 6 for second and field for third, and that for me that was just a foregone conclusion. She was just bred to stay the distance, and I don't know that much about breeding.
And I can absolutely guarantee you she is bred to stay.
Yeah. So will she go all right? Do you think she will go all right in the Melbourne Cup?
I think she needs it wet, but if she gets it wet, she'll definitely stay the trip. That's for sure.
Okay, all right.
And that's the other area where Geoff is very good at it with his ratings as well. Those who are very good in wet tracks and who are bred to run in wet tracks.
And that's something I love betting in the wet. I just think just the action of some horses are bred for those sort of conditions, and I'm not scared to back a horse in the wet.
Yeah, I know Gary's not a fan, but I am.
No,
I quite like it
I
wet.
like to stick to the dry tracks and ratings.
I'm a big fan.
Love it when you can rule out some horses that don't like it.
Yeah.
So Geoff, tell us now the 2-year-old season's here a bit more. What you do to find your selections and how you sort of rank them and whatever else. Any tips for people who are looking at, 2-year-olds and how they should help them in their form study to look for the right ones to back?
Well, if you're looking at the early 2-year-old races, I guess the important thing is you want a horse that can get up and run early. It's more bred like a sprinter. So I would stick to like the younger stallions and ones that have, by stallions that have run at 2. So, pick your, let's try to think of a couple of young ones now. Flying Artie, I think he's had a couple that come out, and I think his first starter actually won.
I think he did too.
Yeah. So don't go for your more staying types as early 2-year-old runners. Doesn't normally work.
Okay.
So stick to your sprinters, and if you can actually look at it, look at the record of the raced mare. So the dam of the actual runner. If it was a sprinting type mare and it was, black type or stakes type quality, that goes a long way in terms of finding your winner. So that's what I'd be looking at, the record of the dam and whether the stallion's actually a sprinter.
Yep.
They're the keys for 2-year-olds.
What about with 2-year-olds? What about with jump outs, barrier trials, etc.? How much do you assess with them in the form?
Absolutely. Well, I do the pedigree analysis first to sort of hone in on what I think's good, and then I'll go and watch the jump outs or the trials. Melbourne's good. You don't need to trial them there, so it's important to go and watch the jump outs. But then again, it's a knack watching a jump out. You got to look at their specific times they're running and how well held they were, and what they're actually racing is important. So it's quite tricky, but yes, you got to do the form and do trials and do jump outs.
Yeah.
It's another key component of it. I guess the other big one with selecting any horse is if it's in the wrong environment, then it's not going to live up to its potential. So look for the better trainers, those trainers that are good with 2-year-olds.
Yes, I agree with you there. And I notice now that a lot of the trainers now are buying farms, and they'll have them in the stable, then they take them straight back out to the farm. A lot of them are doing it these days. And they're doing a lot more towards that British style of training.
absolutely. Good for the horses, good for their minds, gets them out of the routine of being in the stable. You know, I've got a couple of horses in at the moment, and sort of with one of the trainers in Adelaide, it's not just about being in the stable. They take them down to the beach. They take them up into the mountains and do trail rides with them. It's all about keeping the mind fresh. So,
and there's
with 2-year-olds being their first prep, how do you find that, you know, if ordinary established horses, they improve second, third, fourth run? What about with early 2-year-olds? Do they only have 1 or 2 runs, and then thrown out and come back in again a couple of months later? How do you look at that?
It's really 2-year-olds. It's a fine line between sort of pushing them too far and understanding where they're at. So when you're managing the 2-year-olds, it's really just a matter of you got to look at each horse individually, and you know, not push them too hard. Like majority of horses aren't going to perform for you as a 2-year-old. They're just not ready for it.
Yeah, there's a few trainers that are in Victoria that very seldom will put a 2-year-old, you know, in a race. Mick Kent's a prime one. In the last few years, he's only had 1 or 2, and he had the one that had 1 start at Flemington. They backed that from 17s into 7-4, and then it got sold to Hong Kong the very next day.
Yeah, it's important to know your horses and know when to go and when not to. So that's why I said understand your trainers and go for those trainers that have been around and have a good record with 2-year-olds.
Yeah.
And if a first or second start 2-year-olds push too hard in the run, does it need to have a spell much quicker?
You can sort of tell. 2-year-olds get out, jump and run. If they're pushed along as a 2-year-old, normally means they're not ready for it. So you don't really want to see a 2-year-old pushed along. It's not, they're just runners. So
not good for such young leagues, is it?
What about there's a classic example on the weekend. We had Mura. I've looked at the tapes. It sat 3 wide, sort of jumped. I thought it probably, with a bit of luck, it could have won the race. That sort of horse, what do you think next start? Has it got improvement left in it?
They'll improve if they, it didn't have much luck in the run because they had to do a fair bit of work. And down the outside at Randwick on Saturday sort of wasn't the place to be. You needed to be, up the inside. That's what it looked like to me. But what did I back in that race? I think it was one of the Darling first starters.
You had Tazamat, was it?
Yeah, Tazamat.
Yep.
That was the best pedigree. I like the trials. But at the end of the day, you've still got to assess the race in terms of the race shape and the map. It drew 12. Rachel King, who's a fairly quiet rider, she went back. It was hard to make up ground. So,
especially conditions are.
Yeah. You had Mura second pick. But, the horse who won it, Tiger of Malay, they backed it off the mat.
Absolutely.
Some big money, yeah.
And it's by one of the, what was it by? One of the first season young stallions, won the Blue Diamond. Anyway, can't think of it off the top of my head. But yeah, as I said, horse that won the Blue Diamond as a 2-year-old, first season at stud, you're normally going to get a fast early running 2-year-old. So
I noticed you put down in your, I get your assessment of what you think of the 2-year-olds, and that it always has how much they went for in the particular sale. Do you think that has a bearing on how much people pay for it, or how much they assessed it when it was coming through?
It's sort of a bit hard to tell, Gary. There's so many deals done at yearling sales.
Right.
Some of the prices that you see that they actually went for aren't necessarily what the horse was worth.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yep.
You work out the value of what the horse is as well through the breeding?
Not through the breeding. The breeding will tell you something. The female page and how many stakes winners are on the page, the value of the stallion. That combined with the actual type and how well it moves at the sale will determine a price. But you'll find most of the early season 2-year-old runners will come out of the Magic Millions. So
yeah.
Just because
one of your
so
side businesses, but one of your side businesses, you provide analysis to bloodstock agents though on when the sales are up, don't you? On what you think the horse should go for and a bit of background on which horses to look for.
I let them set the price, Gaz.
Okay.
So all I'm doing at a weanling or a yearling sale is providing a pedigree score or pedigree assessment on particular lots.
Right.
It's up to them to then go and do the physical inspections and set a price from there, basically.
And what are some of the horses that you can remember that you suggested are good buys and turned out to be very good racehorses?
Been doing a little bit of work for Gordon Richards over the past couple of years. So there's a few in there. One called G-Tra is probably okay.
Yep. Just slightly.
Slightly.
He's tipped me that a few times.
Yeah, I don't mind backing them. What else has he got in there? Charossa, Ice Ghost. There's a number of horses for Gordon that sort of we've looked at and done pedigrees on. Used to do a bit of breeding for David Brydoak.
Yep.
So
Peter Moody's.
yeah, Davies, legend. What horse is there? Probably Griante. She's a good Group 1 mare. I don't know. Can't think of too many more off the top of my head, but that's a few anyway.
So you gave G-Tra a bit of a tickle at its first up.
I've given it a tickle a few times. So
Yeah, he has, yeah. He's
I
done
did
well.
first up. I actually had an odds on first up against
Nature Strip.
the Wallace Smart Sprinter. So I was quite happy with that.
yeah, well, I joined you that day first up because he's just got the good first up record and Nature Strip doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not going to travel that far for nothing.
Exactly right. Big prize at the end of that rainbow. Anyway, they almost got there.
Yeah. And you knew at the 600 it was travelling nicely. That's what I mean, it's like the good trainers just know how to place their horses. Like Chris Waller, he had a 9-1 shot today that you knew at the 800 it was well and truly in the race. It was just
In the maiden.
Sorry?
In the maiden.
Yes. Yep. Brad Barilla rode it.
Yep.
And he rode it an absolute treat. So that was a real...
Oh, that was in race 4, Gary.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good run.
Yep.
You're probably like me. I watch them all every day until I can't, until I go blue in the face.
Huh.
Yeah, you're always learning from watching, though.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And the whole thing is a lot of punters don't get somewhere with what they're doing is because they're lazy. They just think they can pick up that form guide and it's just going to just poke them in the face.
No, you got to do the work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm very much.
You got to do the work and you got to be consistent. And when you have a bad day, you got to get up, shake your head, and keep going the next day and keep going. And that's the hardest thing in racing, I reckon.
Oh, for sure.
I always talk about you go through a run of seconds, and sometimes we all complain. But you know what? Sometimes when we're having all the winners, maybe the ones with a bit of bad luck, they may have ran second. So it's the swings and roundabouts, and the most important thing. And that's why doing ratings I like, because you can put a price on it and work out if you've actually got good value or not. And if you're taking the right value and you know what the sort of price is, I think you do okay in the long run. But it's a tough game and you've got to work at it and you've got to enjoy it.
Yep. I mean, Geoff, you've opened my eyes a little bit more on how to look at from the breeding side of it, especially for those early, maiden races and things like that, because I am a big fan of wet trackers. I don't know what it is, but I always have it. And I think it was back from the days when I used to back a horse many years ago called Power Cord. And if they said it was a bog track, I would, over 1,600 metres, I would borrow money to back it. You know, and people used to think I was nuts. And that was back when I was younger. Quite often I'd be at work and go, lend us a couple of hundred, lend us a couple of hundred. And they go, oh, what for? I'm going to put it on a racehorse. And it was one of those horses, because in those days you couldn't watch the races, you could only listen to them. And at the 100-metre mark, you wouldn't hear a thing. And then you'd go, the commentator would just say, oh, move over, here comes Power Cord steaming down the outside. You know, he was just an absolute out-and-out mudlark. I think I won about 13 races with him. You know, so I was pretty, you know, I think that was probably the first horse I really took notice of when it came to the breeding and things like that with the mudlarks. You know, I don't know a lot of the muddy size now, because I do everything I do based on ratings.
Yeah, there's a few good wet trackers around at the moment. Sebring's a pretty good wet track sire.
Yeah. I'll agree with you there. Yeah.
And Geoff specialises more in Victorian racing. So if you're doing Victoria mainly, you need to know about wet tracks. Because down here, it's a nice day today, but yesterday was bloody cold. And more importantly, on the weekend, it was like the middle of winter.
Well, I mean, I live in Brisbane and I do Victorian racing. I always have done Victorian racing, right back from the days when Alan McLean used to ride. You know, and and I think it was more because the Sporting Globe and things like that had all that photo form before you could get videos, and they used to have barrier trials and the breeding, and they used to have just the photo finishes of the barrier trials. I mean, Plus Veet won a barrier trial, the one that won the flag start in Sydney 25 years ago for Bart. You know, it won a barrier trial by 8 lengths in the bog in Victoria 8 months before he put it in that Group 1. And I got, the highest price I got on it was 250 to 1. And one of the bookies said to me, I love taking money off mugs like you. The Joanna Gold in the race was 5 to 1 on in the race, and Plus Veet won by 3.5 lengths.
And that's your advantage of doing the study.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But if you're going to do Victorian racing, you have to like betting in the wet, because there's a lot of wet track form in any Victorian form guide you're doing, because it can just rain here, and it can rain at any time of the year. Yeah, and in winter...
I do Brisbane and Victoria.
Yeah.
And then what I call the closed markets, which is Perth and Tasmania. You know, that's where I can find some good winners. But it's all based around ratings. You know, now with the breeding, I would like to know a little bit more about the breeding.
Well, over the course of the next few episodes, we'll talk to Geoff at another stage about what he does in some of the other areas of racing, which are very different to what people look at through the breeding. But it was good to have you on today for this episode, Geoff, about 2-year-olds, and I'd like to thank you for coming on.
Yes.
No
Thank you
worries.
very much, Geoff.
And we'll be back in a minute. Yeah, we'll be back shortly, Tim and I, to talk for the rest of RaceBiz and with our horses to follow, and what's been going on in the racing world.
All right, Gary. Thank you, and thank you to Tim.
Thanks, Geoff. Geoff, if you want to just throw say on Thursday when we post it, if you can look at the Derby and then throw a couple up, we'll put them up on breeding and put your name with it, and that if you want to.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of articles on thoroughbred breeding and that sort of thing. So if you want to post them up on the site, happy to throw them your way.
For sure, mate.
That'd be good. And I think what you should do, Tim, is probably we get this up and then we do that as a drip feed for people coming in to do it. It's a good way to do it. But that's been very good. Thank you, Geoff. And as I said, Geoff looks at things very different to other people I've ever met in racing. Yeah,
and I appreciate you taking the time out to do it for us, Geoff.
No worries, guys.
I've been looking forward to it all week.
Right, man.
Geoff, I'll talk to you a bit later. I want to run through that Bendigo Cup with you.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, mate.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.